The night was calm in the small mountain town of Dalton. Stars filled the sky, and only the sound of crickets could be heard. Jake Carter, a quiet mechanic, was closing up his garage when the sky suddenly lit up like it was daytime. A roaring sound followed, deep and loud, shaking the ground beneath his feet. Jake looked up and saw a massive fireball tearing through the sky. It wasn't a meteor. It was too controlled, too smooth. Flames wrapped around it like a burning cloak. And it headed straight toward the forest near the mountain ridge. Then, with a deafening crash, it disappeared behind the hills, followed by a shockwave that rattled the windows. Jake didn't think. He grabbed his flashlight, jumped into his truck, and drove toward the smoke rising in the distance. The trees along the dirt path swayed violently from the heat in the air. As he got closer, he saw trees burnt black, some fallen, and a crater glowing with faint blue and red light. He stepped out of his truck, heart pounding, and walked carefully toward the edge of the crater. Inside, it was a strange, broken structure not made of any material Jake had seen before. It shimmered, even though parts of it were bent and crushed from impact. Steam hissed from holes, and strange symbols glowed along its surface. Then he heard something, a soft cry, almost like a child. Jake moved fast, climbing down the loose dirt into the crater. Smoke burned his lungs, but he pushed forward. Waving his hand to clear the air behind a broken panel, he found her, a small creature, barely the size of a human child, with pale purple skin and silver hair. She was curled up, coughing weakly, eyes half open. Her clothes were torn, and strange glowing veins flickered across her arms. Jake froze for a moment, stunned. This wasn't a dream. It was real, and she was dying, without thinking. He pulled off his jacket and gently wrapped her in it. The metal around her was still hot. But Jake moved carefully, lifting her into his arms. Her skin was cold, too cold. She opened her eyes slightly and looked at him. Her lips trembling, she whispered something in a soft alien tongue, then closed her eyes again. Jake didn't understand the words, but the way she looked at him, it wasn't fear, it was trust. He climbed out of the crater and placed her gently in the passenger seat of his truck. Then he drove, fast, back to his cabin deep in the woods, far from town, far from anyone who might ask questions. Inside the cabin, he laid her on his couch and grabbed a blanket. She was still breathing, but weak. Jake found his first aid kit and did what he could, cleaning the cuts and covering her with warmth. All the while, she stayed quiet, only breathing softly and sometimes mumbling in her strange language. Hours passed, and Jake stayed awake, sitting in a chair, staring at her. He didn't know what to do next. Call someone. The military. The news. No, he thought. They'd just take her away worse. In the morning, the girl woke. Blinking slowly, she looked around the cabin, then at Jake. This time, she sat up and placed a hand on his chest. She said one word, clear and strong. Protector. Jake was stunned. She understood something. She had chosen him. He smiled a little and nodded. Yeah, he said. Protector. She leaned back and closed her eyes again. But this time, she looked peaceful, safe, outside. The birds sang again like nothing had happened, but in Jake's world, everything had changed. He didn't see the black helicopters flying low over the hills. He didn't see the satellites scanning the area from space, and he didn't hear the signal being picked up by a ship far beyond Earth's orbit. But they saw him, and they saw the girl, and now they were coming. Jake stood at the window of his cabin. The little alien girl slept on the couch, breathing softly, wrapped in blankets. He hadn't slept all night. His mind was spinning with questions. Who was she? Where did she come from? And most of all, who else might be looking for her? Suddenly, the air outside shimmered. The birds stopped singing, the wind paused, and the trees stood still. It was like the entire forest held its breath. Jake stepped outside, and that's when he saw it. A wave of light pulsed across the sky like a ripple. In water, and then without a sound, a massive silver ship appeared above the trees. It had no wings, no engines, and yet it hovered perfectly still. The surface of the ship was smooth like glass, but shimmered like stars. A soft hum filled the air, almost like music. Jake could feel the vibration in his chest, not loud, but powerful. Then a beam of pale blue light came down from the ship. It touched the ground just a few feet from him, and from the beam, a figure appeared. She was taller than any human Jake had ever seen. Her skin was smooth and violet, her eyes glowing. Gold. She wore a long robe made of something that looked like living metal. But what shocked Jake most was her expression. She looked afraid. She looked like a mother. The little girl inside the cabin woke suddenly. She sat up, eyes wide, and ran to the door. When she saw the figure, she cried out in her language something like Mernaya. Then she ran straight into the tall, alien woman's arms. Jake watched as the woman dropped to her knees and wrapped the child in her arms. She held her close, shaking, whispering words with emotion. Real tears ran down her glowing cheeks. The woman looked at Jake, still holding her daughter. A small device floated from her shoulder, scanning Jake from head to toe. Then it spoke in clear English. "You saved her," the voice said, calm and soft. Jake nodded slowly, unsure what to say. "I found her in the wreck. She was hurt. I just did what anyone would do." The alien woman stood and stepped toward him. She extended her hand, fingers long and delicate. "I am Queen Nerea," she said, "sovereign of the Cyrene dynasty." Jake blinked. "Did she say queen?" "She is my blood," Nerea continued. "Looking at the child, and by our oldest law, you are now bound to us both." Jake coughed, confused. "Wait, what do you mean bound? Like adoption? Guardianship? What?" The floating device translated again. "By saving the royal heir from death, you have claimed the vow of the lifeblood. It is an ancient older than our stars. You are now a protector of the bloodline." Jake shook his head. "This is all too much. I just did what anyone decent would do. I didn't ask for any vow." The queen looked down, not with anger, but with deep seriousness. "To refuse the bond now would shame my people." She said, "It would be seen as betrayal of sacred law. There are those who would use that to attack my throne." Jake's heart raced. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." He said, "I just wanted to help." The queen stepped closer. "You have helped," she said gently, "and because of you, my daughter lives." The little girl looked up at Jake and reached for his hand. She smiled for the first time like she truly felt safe. Then, far above, the silver ship flickered. The light beam began to dim. A second smaller ship appeared in the distance, dark, spiked, and not friendly. Queen Nerea's smile vanished. "They've found us," she whispered. "Who?" Jake asked. "The Shadow Clans." The voice said, "They want the throne and they will take the child to get it." Without another word, the queen raised her hand, and a glowing shield surrounded the cabin. Energy shimmered through the trees as alarms echoed from her ship. "We must leave this world," she said, "but only if you come with us." Jake looked at the girl, then at the rising threat in the sky. He knew the forest would soon become a battlefield. He didn't understand everything, but one thing was clear. The child had chosen him. And now the queen was asking the same. His next move would decide everything. Not just for Earth, but for an entire alien kingdom. The silver ship rose higher into the sky. Jake stood inside a glowing room that didn't seem to have any walls or corners. Everything around him shimmered like liquid glass, constantly shifting. Queen Nerea stood near him, silent, her daughter wrapped safely in her arms. The ship was moving fast away from Earth and toward the stars. Through the transparent floor, Jake could see Earth shrinking below. His home, his quiet life, his garage eat was all fading into a tiny blue dot. He felt dizzy, not just from the height, but from everything that had happened one day ago. He was fixing a truck. Now, he was on an alien ship with a queen and her daughter, being chased by something called the Shadow Clans. A gentle chime echoed, and a floating device approached him. It was the same translation orb as before. "Human protector," it said in a calm voice. "It is time you understand the law. You are now part of—" Jake raised an eyebrow. "What law?" The queen walked toward him. Slow and graceful, her eyes were calm but serious. "In our culture," she began, "to save the life of royal blood is not a small act." She raised her hand, and a large floating book appeared in the air. It looked ancient, glowing with symbols that changed every second. "This is the Codex of Life Bonds," she said. "It holds laws written before our stars had names." The orb translated as she spoke. "The law is clear," she said. "If one outside our world saves the air, they become family. They must be accepted into the royal line, not as a servant, not as a guest, but as one of us." Jake blinked slowly. "So what? You're saying I'm like adopted?" he asked. The orb buzzed. "Not adopted," it said. Joined by life bond, Nerea stepped closer. In ancient times, it was a way to ensure loyalty and survival, she said, but over the centuries, it became sacred. Jake looked at the little girl who now stood beside him, smiling and holding his hand. He felt a strange warmth in his chest. She trusted him. She felt safe with him, but still, he was confused. "So what does this life bond mean exactly?" Jake asked. "Like, I'm her guardian now." The queen paused, then nodded. "Yes, but more," she said. "You are her protector, by right. And by law, my mate." Jake froze. "Wait, what?" he said slowly. "Mate." Nerea looked into his eyes without blinking. "Our laws are clear," she said. "The one who saves the bloodline must not only protect, but join the family. You have become part of the throne by action, and now, by tradition, you must stand beside it." Jake took a step back. "Look, I didn't ask for any of this," he said. "I just saved a little girl from a crash. I wasn't looking to get married to an alien queen." Nerea's voice remained calm. "You have the right to refuse," she said. "But if you do, others will see it as an insult, a rejection of ancient law. It would weaken my rule. And those who seek my death would grow stronger." Jake rubbed his face. "So if I walk away, I doom your kingdom." The orb answered. "Possibly," it said. "The Shadow Clans already see your presence as a weakness. They will use it to start war." Jake looked again at the little girl. She tugged his shirt and whispered, "Protector." His heart sank. He didn't want power. He didn't want a crown, but he couldn't walk away from her. Not now. "I don't know how to be part of an alien kingdom," Jake said softly. "I'm just a guy from a mountain town." Nerea smiled gently. "Perhaps that is what we need," she said. "Someone with heart, not ambition." The orb floated between them. "Decision required," it said. "Life bond must be accepted or denied before the council meets." Jake closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and looked at both of them, mother and daughter. He didn't understand everything, but one thing was clear. He wasn't just a visitor anymore. He was part of something bigger. He turned to the queen and nodded slowly. "I accept," he said. The orb lit up bright gold, spinning rapidly. "Life bond confirmed," it said. "Prepare for trial of worth." Jake's mouth dropped open. "Wait, what trial?" The queen looked at him with a slight grin. "Tradition," she said. "Even if the law accepts you, our people must see your worth with their own eyes." Before Jake could respond, The floor beneath him turned to light. He felt himself falling weightless through the stars. And the trial had just begun. He rolled across dusty soil, coughing from the sudden impact. He looked up and found himself on a dry, alien landscape with twin suns burning above. Strange red plants moved slightly, even though there was no wind. And large bones from unknown creatures poked through the sand. He stood up slowly, brushing off dirt. "Where am I?" he muttered. A voice buzzed in his ear. "This is Trial World 7, the translator said. Survive, protect the child, and earn the approval of the council." Before Jake could ask anything more, a second flash of light struck nearby. He ran toward it. Heart-pounding, Anne saw her. The little alien girl was lying on the ground, crying, frightened, her hands over her face. Jake scooped her up fast. Holding her tight, "It's okay. I'm here," he said gently. She clung to him, whispering his name again and again. "Protector, protector." A small device appeared in the air and projected a map. A glowing path lit up in green, leading into what looked like a canyon. "Reach the safe zone," the translator said. "Others will try to stop you." "Others?" Jake asked. But the map blinked out, and silence fell again. He took a deep breath and began to walk. The heat was brutal, and Jake had no weapons. Just his hands, his brain, and the responsibility to protect the girl at all costs. They walked for hours, climbing over rocks and through strange tunnels. Jake made a sling from his jacket to carry the girl on his back. He whispered stories to keep her calm about Earth, about mountains, about stars. She laughed softly at his words, even if she didn't understand them all. But peace didn't last. The ground shook slightly. A dark shadow moved across the canyon wall. Then Jake saw them, figures in black armor. With glowing red eyes, they moved silently, surrounding him fast. 3 on the left, 2 on the right, and 1 above on the rocks. Aiming a weapon, Jake turned quickly and ducked behind a boulder. Blaster fire hit the ground near him, burning through stone like it was paper. The girl whimpered. "Afraid," Jake whispered. "Hold on," and reached into the sand. He found a sharp rock and threw it at the one above, hitting the weapon out of its hand. Then he ran, zigzagging through the rocks, using every trick he knew from his hunting days back home. He found an old cave and slid inside. Holding his breath, the enemy passed right by, not seeing him in the shadows. He waited until the sounds faded, then moved again, following the green path on his map. Night came fast on that world, and with it, more danger. Creatures with glowing eyes stalked them in the dark. Jake built a fire with dry roots, keeping them back with smoke and flame. He held the child close, watching the sky above, hoping for a sign the test would end. But the real test had just begun. Suddenly, the Queen's voice came through the translator. "Jake, they've attacked the royal ship," she said, her voice tense. "The Shadow Clans, they've sent assassins to Trial World." "What?" Jake asked, standing up. "I thought this was just a test." "Not anymore," she said. "They've broken tradition. They're trying to kill you and the child before the bond becomes law." Jake's jaw clenched. He looked at the girl still sleeping peacefully against his chest. "I won't let that happen," he said. A soft hum filled the cave, and a small box appeared from the shadows. Inside was a silver bracelet with glowing lines. "This is the mark of the Guardian," the Queen said. "It will give you access to ancient tools meant only for the Protector." Jake slid it onto his wrist. It tightened, pulsed once, and suddenly he understood. A map lit up in his mind. Weapons appeared from the sand nearby, and his strength felt sharper, more focused. It was like the planet itself had accepted him. The girl woke and looked at him, eyes wide. "You?" "Glow," she whispered. Jake smiled. "Maybe I'm starting to understand this place," he said. He walked out of the cave, fully alert now. Figures moved again in the dark, but this time Kay was ready. With the bracelet, he created a shield of energy, deflecting blasts, and even sent out a pulse that knocked enemies back. One by one, they fell, and the path cleared. As he reached the last ridge, the translator spoke. "Trial complete," it said. "Protector has survived. Child is safe." Awaiting council judgment, a beam of light came from the sky. Jake and the girl floated gently upward, back toward the stars. He looked down at the world below's card, but conquered. He had survived the trial. But now, the real question remained: would the alien council accept him? And if they didn't, what would happen next? The stars faded as Jake's body was lifted into a glowing hall of light. His boots touched down on smooth silver flooring that felt like glass. Around him stood 12 tall figures, dressed in robes of shimmering blue and white. Their faces were hidden behind glowing masks. Their voices echoed as one protector. They said, "You stand before the Council of Ancients." Jake held the child close in his arms. She clutched his shirt tightly, her small hands trembling, but he stood tall. Even though he was shaking inside, one of the council members raised their hand, and a giant sphere appeared in the middle of the room. Inside the sphere, moving images played everything Jake had done since the crash, saving the girl from fire, fighting off enemies on Trial World, protecting her through the night. All of it shone like a living memory. The council watched in silence. When it ended, a second image appeared, Dearth, spinning in space. "This human is untrained." One counselor said, "He is not of royal blood, nor warrior caste." "His presence breaks tradition," said another. "No outsider has ever stood beside the throne." Queen Nerea stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "And yet none of you came to save my daughter," she said. "This human did." There was silence. Then the council turned to Jake. "You have passed the survival trial," they said. "But the trial of worth is more than survival. It is about the heart." Jake took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I didn't do this for power," he said. "I didn't even understand what I was walking into. But I saw a child in danger, and I acted. I didn't care what species she was. I just knew she needed help." He looked down at the girl, who now smiled softly. "She calls me protector," Jake said, "and maybe that's who I'm supposed to be." The council was quiet for a moment. Then the leader spoke. "There is one final step," they said. "Touch the Heartstone." A large crystal floated down from above, pulsing with golden light. "The Heartstone will show your true self," the counselor said. "Not just your actions, but your soul." Jake stepped up to it slowly. The moment his fingers touched the surface, the crystal flashed brightly. Suddenly, Jake's memories poured into the air, images of his childhood, his struggles, his loneliness, his kindness. Moments of heartbreak, moments of laughter. And every time he chose to help someone, even when he got nothing in return, the Heartstone glowed warmer, changing from gold to soft blue, then to green, then finally to white. The chamber filled with light, and the child clapped her hands in joy. "It is decided," the council said. "Human Jake Carter is worthy. He shall bear the title of life-bonded protector." Nerea bowed her head slightly. "Thank you," she whispered. The council continued. "But there is one more truth to be known." The crystal flickered again, this time showing a new image, a black star, pulsing with energy, surrounded by spiked ships. "The Shadow Clans have declared war," the council said. "They will not accept a human on the throne." Jake stepped forward again. "Then let them come," he said. "I've defended one child. I can defend a whole planet if I have to." Nerea turned to him, placing her hand on his shoulder. "You do not have to fight alone," she said. "You are one of us now." Suddenly, the chamber shifted, and Jake found himself standing on a balcony overlooking a massive city. Towers reached toward the sky, ships flew overhead. and millions of alien citizens looked up at him. A voice echoed from above. "Behold your new protector." The crowd erupted in sound-cheering music. Lights bursting in the sky like fireworks. The little girl stood beside him. Waving to the crowd, Nerea joined them, placing her hand in Jake's. But Jake knew this wasn't the end. Not yet. Because deep in the dark corners of the galaxy, enemies were preparing. They didn't want peace. They wanted the child gone, the queen dead, and Jake erased from history. And Jake, for the first time in his life, wasn't afraid. He wasn't just a man from Earth anymore. He was a protector of royalty, a symbol of unity, and perhaps a spark that would change the entire galaxy. The celebration lights still filled the alien sky. Cheers echoed from the glowing towers below, but Jake stood quietly on the palace balcony. The queen had returned to the council chamber. The child was asleep in his arms, and Jake was thinking. He looked down at the stars far below the city. It didn't feel real. Just days ago, he was fixing engines in a small Earth town. Now, millions of aliens called him protector, and a queen stood beside him like he belonged. There, but did he? Soft footsteps approached behind him. Queen Nerea stood at the doorway, still wearing her royal robes. But with a tired look in her golden eyes. "You haven't spoken since the ceremony," she said gently. Jake didn't turn around. "I don't know what to say," he answered. She walked forward and stood beside him, the stars reflecting off her skin. "You were chosen by law," she said. "But now you must choose by heart." Jake looked at her, confused. "I thought the decision was already made," he said. "The council accepted me." Nerea nodded slowly. "Yes, they did," she said, "but you're still free. Our law binds by tradition, but not by force. You can walk away, Jake." He looked down at the sleeping child in his arms. She breathed softly, a slight smile on her face, even in dreams. She had nearly died in that crash, and now she trusted him completely. She called him protector. She reached for his hand when afraid. She needed him. Jake's chest tightened. "I've always been alone," he said quietly. "I never had family, never had a place. I kept my head down. Worked with machines, fixed, broken things, but I never belonged anywhere." He turned toward Nerea. "But now? There's this child, and you, and a world I don't understand. I want to help, but I'm scared." Nerea stepped closer, placing a gentle hand over his. "Courage is not the absence of fear," she said. "It is the choice to protect what matters, even when afraid." Jake nodded slowly. "I don't know how to be royal," he said. "I don't know your ways, your politics, your enemies." "You know how to care," she answered, "and that matters more than titles." A soft chime echoed through the air. A floating sphere arrived, blinking with red light. "Queen," it said. "Emergency message from the outer moons." Nerea's face darkened. "Speak," she commanded. "Shadow Clan forces have invaded Sector 9, the voice said. "They seek to remove the life bond before it strengthens." Jake's body tensed. "They're coming for us," he said. Nerea looked at him carefully. "No," she said. "They're coming for you." Jake looked down again at the child. His heart made the decision before his mind could speak. "I'm not leaving her," he said. "Not ever." The orb pulsed again. "Fleet Command requests Protector's presence in War Council." It said, "The royal bond makes him part of defense strategy." Jake shook his head slowly. "I'm not a soldier," he said, "but I'll fight for her." Nerea stepped forward, this time not as queen but as a woman. She placed her hand on his cheek. "You don't have to stand alone anymore," she whispered. "I will fight beside you for a moment." The great alien palace felt quiet, peaceful, almost human. Then a low hum shook the floor. Red warning lights lit the sky. Ships were approaching fast, dozens of them in black armor shaped like claws. The Shadow Clan had arrived. Jake placed the sleeping child in a protective chamber nearby, then turned back to the Queen. "Let's show them what a human can do," he said. Nerea nodded, summoning her royal blade etched with glowing lines of old power. Together, they walked to the command deck, side by side, as the alarms roared and the stars filled with warships. One truth rang louder than all the rest. Jake had made his decision. Not because of law, not because of duty, but because of love. Love for a child he never knew he needed. And a queen who had opened a door to something far greater than just survival. Now, he wasn't just Earth's mechanic. He was the protector of a royal bloodline, and the galaxy was about to witness what that truly meant. The sky above the palace was no longer peaceful. Black ships tore through the clouds, their engines screaming like wild beasts. Flashes of red and blue lit up the stars. The war had begun. Inside the command deck, Jake stood tall beside Queen. Nerea, his heart beat fast, but his hands were steady. Alien screens showed dozens of enemy ships closing in. The palace shields were holding, but not for long. The little girl was hidden deep in the inner chambers, guarded by elite warriors. But Jake knew the Shadow Clan wasn't after just her. They wanted to destroy everything Nerea, the throne. And especially him, the human outsider who had broken their ancient rules. A general turned to Jake. "Protector, our ground forces await your command." Jake took a breath. "I'm not a soldier," he said, "but I know how to defend what I care about." He pointed to the hills outside the city, set traps along the eastern ridge. "Push them into the canyon. We hold them there." The alien warriors looked surprised, but obeyed. Queen Nerea smiled faintly. "You think like one of us now," she said. Jake nodded. "I think like someone with everything to lose." The first explosion hit the outer wall. Flames rose into the air, shaking the towers. Shadow Clan troops began landing dark armored figures, moving like smoke. But Jake didn't flinch. He grabbed a shock rifle from a nearby rack and turned to Nerea. "Ready?" he asked. She activated her glowing blade. "Always," she answered. Together, they rushed toward the lower halls where the fighting had already begun. Screams echoed through the chambers. Smoke filled the air, and the ground shook. With each blast, Jake fought with all he had, using everything he had learned. He used alien weapons, like tools, built quick defenses from fallen parts. Turned the enemy's strength against them. He wasn't the fastest or strongest. But he was clever, and most of all, he never gave up. At one point, a Shadow Clan warrior broke through the line and charged toward the child's chamber. Jake saw it and didn't hesitate. He threw himself between the enemy and the door. Taking the hit across his side, he groaned in pain but stayed standing, firing back and knocking the attacker down. Queen Nerea rushed to him, grabbing his arm. "You're bleeding," she said. Jake smiled through the pain. "Still breathing," he said. "That's good enough for now." Suddenly, alarms blared again, this time from above. The enemy flagship had entered the atmosphere. Its shadow covered the entire palace. From it, a single figure descended, a massive warrior in black armor, taller than any other. He landed hard, the ground cracking beneath his feet. His voice was deep and cold. "I am Varak, heir-slayer of the Shadow Clan," he growled. "Bring me the child and I will spare your broken bodies." Jake stepped forward, standing between Varak and the throne room. "You'll have to go through me first," he said. Varak laughed. "A human dares challenge me." Jake didn't speak. He raised his weapon. Behind him, Nerea stepped up. "Blade ready. You challenge us both," she said, "and we are not afraid." The final battle began. Varak moved fast, striking with force that cracked stone. Jake dodged, rolled, struck back, using every trick he had. Nerea danced with grace and speed, her blades singing through the air. Together, they fought. As one man and queen, side by side, wounded, tired, but unbreakable, finally, Jake found an opening. He used a damaged power core like a grenade and threw it beneath Varroc's feet. It exploded with a flash of energy, sending the warrior flying into the wall. Unconscious, silence fell. The battle was over. The Shadow Clan ships retreated there. Leader defeated, their armies broken, the city cheered, lights returned to the towers, and the sky was once again filled with music. Not fire. Jake stood in the throne room, his arm wrapped in healing cloth. The little girl ran to him and hugged him tight. "Protector," she whispered. He smiled, holding her close. Queen Nerea stood beside him. "You have done more than anyone expected," she said softly. "You didn't just protect us." She said, "You became one of us." The council returned, bowing their heads with respect. They placed the crown of unity before Jake Not for him to wear, but to bless with his touch, he placed his hand on it, and the crown glowed softly. A new age had begun. From that day, the story of Jake Carter, the human who became protector. Of a royal line spread across the stars, they called him the Defender from Earth. A man who saved a child, stood beside a queen, and became the bridge between two worlds. And Jake. He never wanted a throne. He only wanted to do what was right, and because of that, the galaxy would never forget his name.